Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Java Workshop Part 2. So we're just going to quickly review what we went over last time as quickly as we can. So first thing we discussed was coding languages. So we mentioned that Java can be used for web development, mobile development, as well as like just normal programming. And in my opinion, I'd say Java is a mix in between Python and C. Next, we're going to talk about some IDEs. So what is an IDE? So in simple terms, it's a place where you can code, but its official definition is Integrated Development Environment, IDE. So here are some Java IDEs that are pretty famous. So IntelliJ, NetBeans, and Eclipse. So as we did last class, we're going to primarily be working with NetBeans. And I chose NetBeans because it's simple enough that I think everyone can like code along if they choose to, but it also has some additional features if you guys want to go like more in depth with what like the projects you're doing. We'll quickly overview basic syntax. So last class we learned about main and class setup, print lines, variables, scanners, and if and while loops. So main and class setup. So if you guys remember last time, the class is always above the main, and the main loop is, or the main method, sorry, is contained within the class. So if we have public class and workshop is just a file name, then we have a curly bracket and that ends over here, and we always comment end class. So within that class, we have public static void main string, 2 square brackets, args, which stands for arguments, and again, 2 curly brackets, and again, we just comment end main just to keep things organized. Print lines, so if we have system.out.print, and then we, in quotations, type something out and end with a semicolon, that print statement would stay on the same line. So example, it would be, hi, welcome to the workshop, it'd just be on one line. And then if we have system.out.println, and then hi, welcome to the workshop in quotations ending with a semicolon, the next time you print something out, it will move to the next line instead of just a continuation onto the same line. So we have various variable types that we worked with last time. We have for whole numbers standing for integer, of course, and we can just have something like int number is equal to -5 and a semicolon. This could be like a variable setup. Then we have double, which is meant for decimal numbers, but it can be used with whole numbers as well. So double number is equal to, for example, 2.32 semicolon. Then we have strings, which is used for text. So if we have string variable name word is equal to, in quotations, Canada, and then a semicolon to end that. And finally, we have Boolean, which is true or false. That can be the only 2 things it's defined as. And Boolean run is equal to false, semicolon. And Boolean statements are typically used with while loops in order to determine whether that loop is continuously running, and we can set it to a certain function if we want it to stop at any point. We also talked about scanners. So at the very top of your code, even above the class, we would like write an import statement. So import java.util.scanner is the import statement that we would have to create scanners. And then within the main loop, we would have scanner numscan is equal to new scanner bracket system.in semicolon, and this is used for numbers such as integer or double. And then scanner word scan, new scanner in semicolon. This is used for strings since this is a word, and this for integers and doubles since it's a number. That's just an easy way to remember it. We have if statements. So as we discussed last time, we can have 3 types of if loops. So we can just have normal if. So if number is equal to 5, then print this. And then in addition to an if loop, we can also have an else if loop. So it's basically like saying or else. So if number is equal to 5, print this, or else if number is equal to 4, print this. So if number is equal to 5, print number is 5, else if number is equal to 4, then print number is 4. And then finally, we have an else statement, which basically says if it's not if or it's none of the else ifs, then print this. So I'll just say this in English first to help understand. So if the number is 5, print number is 5, or else if number is 4, print number is 4, or else if it's neither of these, then just print number is not 4 or 5. So if, else if, and else, and you can use else by itself, or you can use else and else, or sorry, you can use if and else, or you could use if, else if, or if, else if, and else. So basically you can use it in a variety of combinations, but you always have to have an if statement if you're using these two. And finally, we have while loop. So as I mentioned before, this uses Booleans. So run would be the Boolean statement. So run, we set it to true. So while this Boolean is equal to true, print out run is true. And the way we would deactivate the Booleans and make it false, we could have example an if statement within the while loop, like if the user writes this, then make run equal false, and then it will stop this loop. So now we can get into some new stuff, which are the main two topics of today, and we're going to be discussing arrays as well as methods. So we'll start off with arrays. So what is an array? So an array is basically a container that holds a set number of a certain variable. So this can be any type of variable, but for example, we're just going to focus on a string for now. So for example, string, and to classify an array, we would use these two square brackets. And the way I think of it is just like these two square brackets represent like a container, like a cylinder, and then we're like putting information inside of that. So string, the two square brackets, then we write the variable name. So in this case, I just wrote food as the variable name is equal to. And then before you guys look at any of the words, this is how we would set it up. We would have a curly bracket on either end, and again, end with a semicolon as we often do. So within those two curly brackets, which again is like our container, we are gonna write like strings inside of this. So for example, I have pizza, strawberries, pineapple, and burgers. All of these are within quotation marks. Since it's a string and it's like a set word, we always use quotation marks with strings. And then we just have a comma separating each of these. So basically what this does is tells a computer that within this container, we have these 4 strings all classified as food. And the way the computer organizes this is that it counts up. And if any of you are familiar with the way computers count, it doesn't count like humans do, starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What computers do is that they start at 0. So we technically have 3 things within this container, even though it's actually 4. We start at 0, 1, 2, 3. So the count ends at 3, but in total we have 4 things. Whoops. Yeah, we have 4 things. So again, we can use arrays with many variable types. We can use it with int, double, string, and booleans, which are the ones we've worked with in the past. So I'm just going to stick with those for today. And this is what it would basically look like. So array examples. So if we have an int array, we have int, the 2 square brackets activating it. Then we name the variable, in this case number, equals curly brackets, semicolon. And since it's int, we can just write the numbers like normally. So it can just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have a total of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 things in here, but in reality, we know it's 5. The computer just starts at 0. Then we have a double. Again, square brackets, number is equal to, and this time I just did it with decimals since doubles can also work with decimals. String we already went over, and Boolean, square brackets, name the variable is equal to, and within the curly brackets and the ending of a semicolon, we can write either true or false. Since Booleans can either be true or false, we can just write those variables in any given order. So now activating an array. So activating an array, we use what is known as a for loop in order to activate an array. So for example, if we have string food up here, so we would classify that as we do like other variables. So if it was just an integer, we would have int number is equal to 5, semicolon. Just like that, we classify arrays like just like that at like the top with variables. So string food, and then pizza, strawberries, pineapple, burgers. And if we want to actually use the array, like we want the output to show an array, what we have to do is type something like this. So we have for, then bracket set, int I equals 0, semicolon, I is less than, then we have the variable name, dot length, semicolon, I plus plus. So I'm just going to quickly break this down. So what does this mean? So int I is equal to 0. So that means we're going to be starting our count at 0. So as we know, again, computers start counting at 0. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. This means that we're going to start counting at 0. Semicolon, I is less than food dot length. So food is obviously our variable name, and length is how many things we have within that array. So in this case, we have 0, 1, 2, 3 things. So length would technically equal 3, but we just have to write length. The computer will count it itself. So I is less than food dot length. So we're going to continue to loop this as long as the amount of times we're doing it is less than the amount of variables or like strings stored within the array. And you guys will see this more clearly in an example as we like go over that soon. And then next, semicolon, I++. So in coding, we typically use I++ as an increment system. So what this means is just going to go up by 1 each time. So just to visualize this, we're starting at int I equals 0. So this is 0. So we're going to have pizza. Then we're going to go up 1 with the I++. Then we're going to have strawberries, go up 1, pineapples, go up 1, burgers. And then we're going to stop because I is no longer less than the amount of things we have stored in the array. So then we just stop. And then within this for loop, we have the curly brackets again. And then within that loop, we're just gonna have system.out.print or println food, the variable name, and 2 square brackets indicating that it's an array. So that's a lot of information, and we'll get to it more clearly in our example. But just to visualize this, we're just gonna go to the next step. So string food, system.out. So this is what the computer is going to print it out like. So instead of typically where we print in a horizontal line, arrays are print in vertical lists. So it's going to be pizza, strawberries, pineapples, burgers, just this list, but vertical. So we're going to get into our first example with arrays, and let me just open this up, workshop. Okay, perfect. So we're just gonna quickly name a file called superheroes. And if any of you wanna code along, you're welcome to, of course. So we have our public class superheroes already set. And in this example, we're not gonna need to use scanners since we already have, like this project is honestly just printing like a chart. So we're gonna set up our main, public static void main string square brackets, arguments, and then do that. And we want to comment and main, and we want to comment and class. So we're going to be working within the main.